Every time I shoot something from the kitchen, it ends up being a really cool shoot, and today is going to be no different. I've grabbed a corkscrew from my kitchen drawer, and this is going to turn into some really cool abstract art by adding some interesting lighting, composition, and some different focusing techniques. Stick around and I'll get started in just a sec. Hi guys, I'm Ben from Adaptalux and welcome back to another macro photography shoot where today I'm photographing indoors again because it's really cold and horrible outside, and during the winter I want to try and find some interesting shoots that you guys can easily do at home. Now, because it's getting colder and we're getting closer to Christmas and the holiday period, I thought it would be quite relevant to photograph a corkscrew. Maybe there's going to be a lot of wine opened in the next few weeks and you might find opportunity to take some interesting shots of your own corkscrews. The one that I have here is a waiter's mate. This is a little gadget designed for waiters to very quickly open a bottle of wine at somebody's table and then fold it all back up and put it back into their pocket. This is a very interesting subject because it's got quite a few cool features on it. First of all, we obviously have the corkscrew in the middle here. We also have a nice wooden handle here that has some metal studs and metal surround and a little fold-out knife as well. But on this end, we have this little mechanism that is designed to press down on the lip of the wine bottle and give you some leverage to open up the wine and get the cork out. All of this put together is going to make for some interesting opportunities for some abstract art. I want to get really close to this thing to the point where you can't really tell what it is anymore, and take a very close-up look at some of the particular details that make up this little device. I'm going to be adding a lot of lighting, I'm going to be doing some focus stacking, and hopefully all of that is going to come together with some really nice and interesting shots. The very first thing that I need to do is of course grab my camera and a tripod and some lighting. Lighting is a particularly important aspect of a shoot like this. Because our corkscrew is a fairly run-of-the-mill household item, it's going to be really recognizable and potentially quite boring if you're just shooting a corkscrew under the ambient light in your room without doing anything extra special with your photography. So I'm going to be adding a lot of extra light and some colored light as well. I'm going to be doing that using the Adaptalux Studio. This is a lighting system designed specifically for macro photography. You can see I've got the control pod on the top of a little mini tripod here so that I can set all of this up down on my table. Into the control pod, however, plugs these flexible lighting arms, and you can see straight away that we have some illuminated orange light, perhaps some blue light as well. We can have up to 5 different lights plugged in at once, so that gives us an opportunity to add lots of different colors and some white light as well. Now, these are completely flexible so that we can place our lights wherever it needs to be in relation to our corkscrew, and particularly in relation to the reflections on the corkscrew. As I've talked about with these sort of stainless steel kitchen items before, reflections are going to be both a problem and something that we can harness to enhance the abstract nature of a shoot like this. So my camera setup is pretty standard. This is what I've been using for a while. I've done a few shoots with this exact setup, so you can go and check out some more videos that use this particular setup on the rest of our channel. It's a Sony a7 III on the top of a tripod with a focus stacking rail in between there, and then I've got a shutter release cable plugged in so that I can perhaps do some focus stacking. On the front of my camera I've got the Lauer f2.8 2.5 to 5 times macro lens. This is a really powerful lens. It can get you very close, but I think today I'm going to be mostly using it zoomed out at 2.5 times magnification, which is still very close, and it is going to obscure the overall shape of our waiter's mate, which you can see is sat down there on the table. Now, I'm not going to do anything special for mounting this thing. I'm just going to be moving it around with my hands and exploring the various details of this interesting little device. Now, the last but not least, you can see our Adaptalux studio setup here. So I've got the control pod sat on a little mini tripod. I've got a single white lighting arm S plugged in with a diffuser on the end there. It's a little bit hard to tell because it's so bright, but there is a diffuser magnetized to the end of that lighting arm. And then of course I've got a selection of other lighting arms to play around with, including all of the different colors. Now, you can add diffusers to the front of every single one of these lighting arms, so we can go both direct light, which will be very, very interesting for those reflections, and also softer diffused light. You can see in the image here, the reflections are actually different both on the metal part of the corkscrew and then on that wood as well. So having a little bit of different light on the different areas could be really, really interesting. That is going to be my first tip for you guys today, is don't forget about modifying your light. It's all well and good to just have a light source that's nice and powerful shining down on your subject and you'll get great settings. However, light changes when you start diffusing it, changing the color, moving it around, and changing the distance away from your subject. So I'm going to be adding diffusers to my lighting arms that just magnetize on the end there, because it will completely change the look of my image. I'm not sure which I'll prefer yet, but when you have something as simple as a little clip-on diffuser like this, it's worth trying both diffused and undiffused light in your images. I'm going to try some undiffused light and then diffuse it as well and see what kind of difference that makes to our Waiter's Mate image. I just wanted to show you the difference between diffused and undiffused light. So this is my diffused light on my Waiter's Mate, the same shot that we just saw. But if I unclip that diffuser, you can see that everything has changed. We have much brighter highlights on those cross-hatching metal areas, and the wood looks different as well. Let's pop that back on. And you can now see that everything is slightly darker, but that light is softer. So if I just compensate with my ISO there, you can see that the light is very, very different. It's not just brighter, it's different. The shadows in the little crevasses there are slightly darker when you have no diffusion. That's because the light is actually coming from, well, quite a large surface area just here on the end of this diffuser, and it's bending around all of the edges. So I do highly recommend playing around with diffused light and undiffused light to see which look you prefer. Now, you don't have to go all with diffused light or all with undiffused light. You can do a mix. So let's add another lighting arm in here and see what that does to our image. Now you can see that we've still got that diffused light lighting up the back of the image there, but we have this highlight that we can move around and catch some interesting highlights on the raised surfaces of the metal. This is what I was talking about when I was mentioning reflections. Reflections are really, really fun to play around with, but they can also be disastrous if you can't control your light. So if you're new to close-up photography or macro photography, one question that you might have at this point is, how did that image on the back of the camera that had a very shallow depth of field go to being completely in focus? Well, that is a technique called focus stacking. You might have heard of focus bracketing or photo stacking. These are similar techniques that all come together, basically meaning taking multiple photographs and combining them into one, taking the best parts of each image. You can do this to create, say, a HDR image with different exposures all combined into one, and we can do it with focus as well. So I'll be moving my camera through my image, moving that little thin depth of field, the plane of focus, through my image, and as I go I'll be taking photographs. So I might end up with maybe 100 photographs, all of thin little cross-section slices of my image in focus. I'm going to then go to put them into some software. My software is called Helicon Focus. I'll put a link to that down in the description. And it's going to process all of the in-focus areas together to create a completely in-focus image. It can be a little bit fiddly, it can be very time-consuming, particularly when you're taking lots and lots of shots, but the results can absolutely blow your mind. It's something that I've talked in depth about in other videos, so I will link to a focus stacking tutorial up in the top right hand corner and down in the description if you want to go and learn more about that technique and potentially get your corkscrew completely in focus. It's absolutely not necessary though. You don't have to try and get everything in focus. Sometimes these shots, particularly when you're aiming for something abstract, can look really nice with some soft focus in the foreground and the background. I'll leave that completely up to you. It's just a choice that you might need to make as to whether you want your image to be completely in focus and get all of that extra detail, or to have it look a little softer and a little bit more abstract. Now, of course, I wanted to experiment with a lot of different angles, all of my different colors, my diffusers, my color filters, all of that is really quick to change out in the Adaptalux Studio. So I've taken advantage of being able to modify my light very quickly and experiment with a whole bunch of different looks. I'm not sure which ones I prefer. I definitely like the natural looking white shots, but I also like it when there's a little bit of orange in there. I think it looks a little bit homely. Perhaps the corkscrew is sat next to an open fire or something like that, looking very cozy. The other colors, the blue, the green, the red, they start to look a little bit more abstract, a little bit less realistic, but they do have their own advantages, maybe looking a little bit like a sci-fi scene or some sort of alien implement maybe. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but definitely try out some different colors to get some different themes and vibes in your images. Playing around with this little tool has actually been very surprising. I didn't expect it to be quite as interesting as it has been, but I'm really pleased with a lot of the images that I've got today. So if you've enjoyed this shoot, let me know by leaving a like on the video, and make sure to hit the subscribe button for lots more macro photography tutorials, ideas and inspiration coming in the future. For now though, I think it's time for me to go and open up my own bottle of wine and perhaps enjoy my images over a little glass of red. So that is all I've got time for. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.